Thank you. So when I was asked to do this by the civilians, I was a little stumped because I don't have any divorces in my family. Or so I thought. Because then I talked to my mother about 2 weeks ago, and it turns out that not only is there a divorce in my family that I did not know about, there's a whole marriage I didn't know about until 2 weeks ago. And it has to do with my grandmother Doris. I'll tell you a little bit about her. She's 94 years old. She lives in Palm Beach, Florida, and Scarsdale half the year. She's by far the most glamorous person in my family. Just one quick story. She loves to throw really lavish birthday parties for herself, at which no one is allowed to know her age or speak it, at least. And at one of these birthday parties, every woman who came to the party had a plastic tiara at their table setting that they were forced to wear. And then when Doris showed up, she was wearing a real diamond tiara that she rented just for that occasion, like an insane attempt to show up every other woman at the party. She sometimes complains that she doesn't have a man in her life. And that's basically because she's outlived all the men. She said she has two great loves in her life. Jerry, who was my biological grandfather, but I never met him because he died before I was born. And Ben, who she married after that, who is the man I knew as grandfather growing up. And he died when I was 13. So Jerry and then Ben, you know, like the ice cream, but reversed. And so my mother told me, you know, your grandmother Doris had a first marriage before she met Jerry that she never talks about. And it was news to me. So I called her up this past weekend and I interviewed her. I told her I was doing a project about marriage so I could kind of lead up to the divorce part. And I'm gonna read the results to you tonight, and I'm gonna play my grandmother, and to play me, I'm gonna ask my sister to come down, Alyssa Schulman. Okay, so.
Can you tell me about how you met Jerry?
Yes. Let's see. I was working for my father in his business. He was in the knitwear business, and I was a model and a salesperson because I couldn't get a job teaching when I graduated school. So I was working for him, and a friend of mine was a buyer in Philadelphia and came in one day and said, "Doris, would you like to go on a blind date with me?" And I said, "Really, no." I was going with another boy at that time, so I said, "Really, no." And she said, "He's a doctor and a really nice guy." So finally she convinced me, and I went out with him, and he was very nice, and then he was taken into the Navy as a commander. He was stationed in Maine, and he wrote me a letter and said, would I like to come in and take me out, and would I get tickets for the theater, which I did. And then he invited me up to Portland, Maine for a weekend, and I said, I really don't like to go alone, you know, I'm not married and I don't think my parents would like it. He said, well, bring a friend with you, you're both invited. So we went. And I had a very nice time, and he asked me to marry him. And he said, if you don't marry me, I won't jump over the Brooklyn Bridge, but I'd be very happy if you would. I came home and I told my mother that he had a lot of nerve saying that. And she said, it's about time someone told you off. You go out with so many men. So anyway, P.S. I couldn't make up my mind between Jerry and another boy I was going with who was much younger. Anyway, my parents convinced me that after my past experiences I would be better off marrying Jerry. And I took their advice and I never regretted it.
Tell me the story of how you met Ben.
Oh, after Jerry died, I went back to school and got a degree because I had to get on with my life and I was very heartbroken. And when I went to school, every time they mentioned Jerry's name, because he was acclaimed as such a wonderful, wonderful doctor, which he was. And I finally felt that it was good going to school because I did work on Sundays and I got a little dog to keep me company. And then a friend of mine, who was a doctor's wife, said to her friend, "Do you know somebody to introduce Doris to?" And this was 6 months after Jerry died. So I said, "All right, I'm ready to go out." And she gave my name to Ben, and Ben was related somehow to this girl. And he called me up and asked me if I would like to go on a date with him. And I said, okay, and we went out, and he got lost going home. He didn't get home for 3 hours, because he lived up a ways in Westchester. He didn't get home until 3 in the morning. But anyway, we had a wonderful time. And he was ready to get married the next day. But I was not. And I was certainly not going to consider marrying anyone for at least a year. And P.S., I also wanted to make sure that he was bright enough for me. That sounds very funny, but it's true. And so finally my sister suggested that if I had hesitations about it, I should go to some kind of therapist, which I did with him. And the therapist said, "I'm afraid he's too strong for you. He's too powerful." And I said, "I can handle that." And anyway, I finally said yes, and we got married at a hotel in Westchester, and I never regretted it for one day.
What are the hardest parts of being married?
What? I didn't understand that.
What are the hardest parts of being married?
To Ben or to anyone?
To anyone.
Anyone? Let me think. Well, with Jerry, the one